We read this. While Jesus was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of a spice called pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them any time you want, but you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." This is fascinating to me, because this blessing is a blessing that many of us feel is inappropriate. It's the blessing that if I give and someone knows that I give, then they've recognized that I've given, and then somehow I lose a little bit of my blessing because people know that I did it, and that's not right, it's the wrong motives, things like that. Listen, Jesus is okay with that. Jesus is okay with this simple principle. If you give sacrificially in such a way that honors the name of Jesus, your story is going to be told. And people who hear that story are going to be overjoyed. And they will glorify the one that you tried to glorify too. Listen, I don't even know this woman's name. Jesus didn't give us her name. In another gospel, we're told of a similar story that happens with Mary, but we don't know if Mary's the person who did it right here. All we know is this woman did something dramatically amazing, financially speaking. A year's wages invested in one moment of intense smell. A year's wages in one moment. She could have used that money to help the poor. She could have used that money to retire. She could have used that money to do all kinds of things. But the people standing on the outside, pointing the finger, saying, "You could have used that money to help the poor," Jesus looks at them and he says, "You can help them anytime you want." As if he's saying, "Why aren't you helping them now?" You see, Jesus is okay with extravagant sacrifice if it brings honor and glory to him. And one of those blessings that you can receive is the blessing of recognition. There's a guy who I like to recognize when I get a chance. His name is Jim Elliott. And he's a man who went to the school that I went to. I went to Wheaton College. Jim Elliott went to Wheaton College. That makes me feel good because there's sort of like that vibe there. But he was there quite a while before I was, about 50 years before I was there. Jim Elliott had a passion for helping people know about Jesus, and he studied and studied and studied. And he met some men and some friends at college, and then he decided he was going to go and witness to some Indian people, some Native American tribal people in the middle of Ecuador. And he decided he was going to go there and bring them the news of Jesus Christ. Minor problem, no one had ever gone there and not been killed. These people were headhunters. They were cannibals. They killed every white man they saw. And Jim Elliott somehow found out about it and decided he wanted to go there. And he gave up all kinds of financial resources to get the training that he needed. And he gave up all kinds of time. The guy was an amazing leader. He could have been a great person in business, but no, he decided he was going to go and invest in these Native American people in Ecuador. And so he then finally, after years and years of training and practice and getting ready, he then finds this team. These guys fly down into the wilderness, and they land on a little beachhead where they are going to set up camp and make contact with the people who live there, with the tribal people who live there, so that he can witness to them and share with them the good news of Jesus Christ, and they are never heard from again. A couple days later, another flight goes over that same area, and they see the airplane on the landing strip, and they see trash all around it. And everybody knows what happened. Talk about a wasted life. A guy who invested all kinds of stuff, and all he did was get killed. But inspired by that, his wife and the wives of the other men who were there decided they were going to try a second time. And they somehow found their way to the same area, and somehow made a friend, and somehow learned the language, and somehow, over a span of a few years, led the entire tribe to know about Jesus. The entire tribe. Jim Elliott famously said, "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." You're not going to keep this life very long anyway. And he was willing to give his life to gain something of eternal significance. There are 3 more blessings I want to race you through here. The next blessing is the friendship blessing. In Luke 16:9, Jesus says, "I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings." Use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves. One of these days, we're going to meet up with a whole bunch of people in heaven. And we don't know what kind of impact we will have on their lives here and what kind of welcome they will give us when we get there. But Jesus says you can use worldly wealth to make an impact there. Listen, I know all of you have friends here on earth. And so I want to give you permission to use some worldly wealth to influence some people. And so I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to make some type of promise. I'm going to try to figure out a way for me to do this personally. Just me, not the church, just me. I'm going to figure out a way to do this personally. But I want to give money. I'm going to invest $100 of my money to see some of you hold a little party for one of your friends. Now, this is the challenge. This is what I want you to do. You need to find a friend or someone that you know who is not a believer, and you need to invite them over to your house. And you can spend, I will let you spend as much money as you want up to that $100, but I can only do $100. And so if 3 of you want to apply for this thing, then, each of you gets $33, or first come, grab 70, and the rest of you get 30, or whatever. But if you want to do this, just come up to me, talk to me, and say, "Hey, I want to do this party, and I want to spend this much money on doing it," okay? And I'm going to see if I can do a party with my wife at my house for some of my friends too. And we're going to see what can happen here. And if you want to invest your own money, please do. But I'm willing to stand out on the limb with this a little bit and invest a little bit of my money to help you get the ball rolling. And what I want you to do is to invite a non-Christian, someone who doesn't know Jesus, over to your house, and you have 1 assignment. 2 assignments. 1 assignment, the first assignment is have fun. The second assignment is you need to ask them this. Do you have any questions about faith? The Bible, God, anything. And if they give you a question, you need to write it down, because that's our next series of messages. When we're done with this Treasure Principle series, we're going to do a whole series addressing common questions that people ask about the faith. And I'm going to take some of your questions live, and I'm going to take questions that have been prepared in advance, and we're going to deal with some of that stuff. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of that next week. And next week, we're going to be dealing with some live questions and some other things too. So you've got 2 weeks to invite a friend over and see if they have any questions about the faith. Get those questions to me, and then we're going to do it on a Sunday morning, okay? So that's my little challenge. We're going to build some friends.